Okay, Derbyites, all hell has broken loose at the Oscars. We have to break this down. We're going to have an unparalleled panel talking about Oscar history. We will already start the show. I was working on my scoreboard for which film had won the most, and I had to rub it out and just put down on the board, WTF. What just happened, Tony? Like, this is, like, I just don't even know how to start. Take us away.
No, I thought something was wrong because as the producers of La La Land were making a very nice speech, all of a sudden I started seeing these stage managers like rumbling through the crowd, and it seems that Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty were given the wrong envelope. It seemed like they were given the Best Actress envelope, which said La La Land, but the winner was actually Moonlight. Let's not even talk about that it's an upset of gargantuan proportion that La La Land lost Best Picture. Let's talk about the way that it happened. And particularly, and I just want to say to the producer of La La Land that was speaking at the time, he deserves an Oscar in graciousness. That could not have been an easy situation, and God bless him for being so gracious in what was just clearly a catastrophe of a situation.
And I think that's the sort of that almost like should be the lead of the story, is this position where someone who's been the front runner all award season is up there accepting an Oscar for directing La La Land, a film very well praised and stuff. And he's the one who has to break the news to the world that he did not win Best Picture. It was in fact another film. And it's actually like, that's Oscar history in itself, that the loser is announcing the winner to everyone in the room. When they thought 2 minutes earlier that they were the winner. Like, pandemonium broke loose. You had Warren Beatty trying to grab the microphone to try to explain what he had done. You had Jimmy Kimmel trying to keep it light and keep it moving. You had the La La Land producers trying to grab the mic and sort of say that they're okay with losing. And then you had the Moonlight producers. Like, it was bedlam. It was all happening at an award show that is probably the most meticulously planned and produced, and the amount it just all blew up at the end of the night. Unbelievable. And that, I agree with you, Tony, that producer of La La Land had the toughest job in the room, and he was so gracious and humble and composed, and really was I think the hero of the story. And
to say that he was, it was heartbreaking to me, because it was like he actually said, I'm happy to give this to the producers of Moonlight. I mean, this is an upset of gargantuan proportion. It's a situation of gargantuan proportion. I don't think this is going to be a big story in entertainment circles for quite some time. How this happened, who made the mistake, and I thought Kimmel really handled it well. It's like when he said that, I wish that we could give both of them. Why does one have to lose it?
Yeah.
I thought he was just fantastic. I've never thought I would ever see anything like this. This is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
Amanda, we won't talk about which film deserved to win, all that sort of stuff. Just from your breaking down the actual moment and the confusion, what's your takeaway from all of it?
That clearly, I think that if Warren Beatty saw Emma Stone La La Land and not the guys, he probably shouldn't have just read off They shouldn't have read off La La Land, but he was definitely practicing covering your own ass. Like, he was CYAing that whole situation. Like, he wasn't leaving that stage without trying to do that. And it just, I mean, the audience gasp was crazy. And we know now that not getting that SAG Award nomination is what did in La La Land, because it did not get that ensemble nomination. And in 22 years, not since Braveheart as a film won, and this is the second year in a row where the front runner for Best Picture was not nominated for ensemble and then lost the Oscar.
Yeah, I do think like you can look at it with what like La La Land is not an ensemble film. Like anyway, we could talk about this in a minute, but like this is the interesting thing with the Warren Beatty explanation, and he did pause. He opened the envelope. He looked a bit confused. He sort of put that sheet to the back of the envelope. Then there was nothing else in there. Then he looked at the. Then he showed Faye Dunaway. She said, "Oh, you got it back behind this envelope." Read out. La La Land was read out as the winner. He claimed, and it's probably true, that was the Emma Stone La La Land envelope. I probably wouldn't have read it out. I would have probably not read it out if it had said Emma Stone on the sheet. I don't know. So, but does that mean they had the wrong envelope, and that Warren Beatty was handed the envelope that was just read out for Emma Stone? Were there two Emma Stone envelopes? This is a great Oscar mystery of what happened to these envelopes.
Someone's going to get fired.
Well, and there was an article recently. It's so kind of fortuitous that this came up. There was an article recently about rehashing the whole like Marissa Tomei. Did Jack Palance actually read Marissa Tomei's name? And they interviewed folks from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they talked about how, you know, the two people that carry the envelopes, they have memorized all of the winners and as a check. So what I want to know is something happened between Best Actress being handed out and somehow the envelope got back into the PricewaterhouseCoopers people's hands, and that got given somehow to Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. But after reading that article, it's just amazing. I'm stumbling because there's no logical explanation for this other than that somebody royally effed up.
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah. I don't want to just blame the accountants because something happened. Clearly, something has happened, and this is going to take a while to figure out. We're not going to know tonight, but
it's be the next season of our serial podcast will be what happened to the envelopes. Yeah,
it's like Ryan Murphy. It's like Ryan Murphy's next like limited series is just writing itself tonight.
American Crime Story, La La Land.
Yeah, American Crime Story, La La Land versus Moonlight. Yeah. Like, what in the hell happened? Because clearly, I'm guessing the accountant started screaming at stagehands like that did not win Best Picture.
Well, we've always heard that there is someone on hand at the Oscars for if someone were to read out the wrong name. Like, for whatever reason, they decide to play a joke or they want their friend to win. There's an accountant standing right on stage who can instruct, no, get that guy off the stage. That's not the right winner. I've read this before. We saw tonight what happens when the wrong name is read out. And it did seem like people did switch into gear and get it sort of happening. It was not the immediate swooping in that you would expect. Like, there was this good 20 seconds of acceptance speech before.
And what we have to keep in mind is that, you know, this is 89 years of the Oscars, and this has never happened to this extent. There's been, you know, occasions where a presenter's gone out. I think famously Sharon Stone and Quincy Jones forgot the envelope in, I think, 95 for Il Postino. But we've never had a situation where somebody has been on stage accepting an Oscar and then has to say, no, actually it was somebody else.
And you're right, Tony. They were very, very gracious. That's the way to handle that situation. I'm sure they're a little disappointed that they didn't win. I'm sure they're a little disappointed that they didn't make Oscar history. But
they did, just not the way they wanted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No one's ever going to forget this. But it's just, someone is going to be responsible for this. I mean, if I were the producers of this show, they should be very comfortable in the fact they're probably not coming back after this kind of a screw up. Like something happened.
And it would be a shame too, because I thought the show as a whole was actually quite good.
This was probably not a producer's problem.
No, but ultimately they're in charge of the show. So if they're going to be held somewhat accountable for what's going on, whether they are responsible or not, they're still, I mean, I'm sure Cheryl Boone Isaacs is backstage screaming at someone. Viola Davis is so her in the movie, like in the movie version of this.
Cheryl Boone Isaacs will be played by Viola
Davis.
So that like that thank you cam, sometimes they're running backstage at award shows, was recording when all this, like, you know this behind the scenes video footage of it dawning on people and kicking into gear with what they had to do.
Bring me that footage, please.
Yeah,
this is going to be, we're going to have to come back in like a couple days once we've learned more about this and like reconvene, because we're going to learn more in a day or two, and we're going to sort this out, because a head is going to have to be put on a stick for this kind of a mistake.
Oh yeah. It was and yeah, it's a moment, and I think like we don't want to be entirely critical. The La La Land producers dealt with it very well. I agree that Jimmy Kimmel dealt with it brilliantly. He kept it sort of light. He took a bit of the heat. He was prepared to take a bit of heat himself, made a few jokes about it as his fault. He said that, why don't they both win? I think Jimmy Kimmel actually ended really strong in a moment which he hadn't planned or anything. It shows... You've got
I don't think
Jimmy
Billy
Kimmel.
Crystal could have handled it better than he did, because that was pretty well.
And you've got Jimmy Kimmel in this moment which is historically bad. You don't want a situation where someone's the wrong winner's announced and they're up on stage accepting and have to find that out. That is a bad. And Jimmy Kimmel on his feet was able to handle that so well, stay in control of the situation, command the stage still. It contrasts so much to what you saw with Jimmy Fallon at the Globes when the prompter didn't work.
And I think especially Kimmel came out looking even better, mainly because, Warren Beatty tried to go up, and he was trying to explain what happened, but he also seemed like he was trying to, say, hey, it's not my fault, which
damage
control. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It was like, nobody's really paying attention to you right now, Warren. Please,
Well, it is kind of his fault. If you saw Emma Stone, La La Land, Emma Stone's not a producer on La La Land.
Yeah,
he should have known. He should have just said, I think I might have the wrong envelope.
He should have said that. You did see he did pause. He was confused when he opened that envelope. It seemed like Faye Dunaway sort of prompted, oh, no, that's the right one. Read it out. Like, it did seem like, and again, like, he was, it should not be the fact that he's holding the wrong envelope. Like, that's him being put in a bad position. He probably didn't say what he should have. Like, we can talk about, there's plenty of people in the situation, like Jimmy Kimmel and the La La Land producer that did exactly the right thing. I don't think Beatty did, but he was put in a tough position if he was given the wrong envelope.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot to say about this event, far apart from the win. This is one for the record books. I have a feeling next year's going to seem awfully anticlimactic. And you can already bet that whoever hosts the Oscars next year is already getting a cavalcade of writers to start writing jokes about wrong envelopes for next year.
I just can't wait to watch Jimmy Kimmel tomorrow to see how. I mean, he might finally win his Emmy after this for the show afterwards. Like, oh my! I mean, this is.
I'm trying to find a tape now of the moment to see if there's any clues as to whether that envelope was already open, or did they need to break the seal on the envelope? Like, was there a second Best Actress envelope out there, or was it the one that is Leo to blame? Did Leonardo DiCaprio, what did he do with that Emma Stone envelope?
Well, I've read once that if you present an Oscar, your job is to keep track of that envelope until you're backstage and then hand it to the person who won, saying this is yours also.
Yes.
That is their job. So if that's just the same envelope, unless there's two, which would be stupid to begin with, but if that's the only one, then I don't want to blame Emma Stone or Leonardo DiCaprio, but
Emma
somewhere.
Stone, what did you do with that envelope?
Yeah, somewhere between I mean, you know, like I said, we're gonna have a great limited series about this in about 5 years. Like, what in the world?
Yeah. And can I say, mistakes happen. People are people. They make mistakes. It was dealt with well by the La La Land producers. Like, I hope some 18-year-old intern doesn't lose his job over this. Like,
I hope it's not an 18-year-old intern. I mean, seriously, this.
Yeah.
My heart just breaks for those producers. To me, they're the biggest. I don't want to use the term victim. But they had such a raw hand dealt to them, and regardless of what anybody feels about, which film deserves it more, I think everybody could agree that nobody should have to be put in that position, especially on live television in front of 100 million people.
Yeah.
But we finally have something to talk about other than Trump for a couple of days.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think add to the fact, I think though no one should be put in that position, but it is in positions like that people shouldn't be put in which great moments arise. And that La La Land producer, which I really want to find out, what was his name? Because we really should be naming rather than just calling him that guy.
Well, it was one of the three, but I don't know which one it is. It wasn't Mark Platt, I don't think.
It wasn't,
okay.
Yeah.
We'll find that out.
He handled it well. I'll happily hand it over to them, no problem.
Yeah.
Wow.
One of the great Oscar moments of all time. One of the worst Oscar moments of all time, but also one of the best, where someone has just been told that there was a mistake made, he didn't win, wanting to hand it over to the person who beat him.
I think
that's a great moment. That's one of my favorite Oscar moments.
I think the tie by Barbra Streisand and Katharine Hepburn just got knocked out of first place.
That producer's name is Jordan Horowitz. So Jordan, bravo to you, and I raise my glass to thee.
Yeah, hero of the Oscars, Jordan Horowitz saved one of the most awkward moments ever. And boy, I hope Tom joins us at some point, because I'd love to hear his take, because he
oh my God, I'm dying.
Drama, Tom. What's
right? I know, he hasn't even emailed. Come on.
I hope Tom's okay.
He's probably
he probably needs a paper bag.
He probably needs a paper bag and maybe a Valium.
Yes. So, boy, oh boy, part of me doesn't know how to talk about anything else. But
it does.
Let's talk about how did Moonlight win? How did Moonlight pull this off? Let's just stay on best.
Yeah, let's look at
actually,
because if none of this had happened, if they'd just read out, they got the right envelope, Warren Beatty goes, and the winner is Moonlight. Still the biggest shock of the night. Still the thing we're all talking about. That on its own is a huge story. Tony, how did Moonlight win?
Daniel Montgomery said something that I think is absolutely true, particularly when you have this preferential ballot in Best Picture. Moonlight, throughout the award season, and we saw this at Critics' Choice, we saw it at Golden Globes when it won Best Picture, and it got a prolonged standing ovation at the Golden Globes. Moonlight was everyone's was certainly in everybody's top tier of their favorite movies. So even if it didn't necessarily get a lot of first place votes, you can bet it probably got a lot of second or third place votes. La La Land certainly has its critics. There are some people who feel like it's slight. There's some people who feel like it's not as significant, as dramatically significant. So you can bet that probably, while it probably got a lot of top tier votes, it probably also got a lot of votes down at the bottom. And so the preferential ballot, I think, in this case helped Moonlight, because there are very few people who, like, whereas some people loved La La Land and some hated La La Land, there was a larger percentage of voters in the Academy that clearly had Moonlight higher up on their ballots. And I think that's probably what happened.
I completely agree. I remember thinking, was La La Land popular enough to win in the first round? And I think if we just saw the first round votes, it probably was. But once you get down to that preferential, there are people like me who have problems with the fact that there was only like 5 or 6 songs in it. So, and I loved Hidden Figures and I loved Moonlight, and I could see how someone could rank it 4th. Whereas I really, really loved Moonlight. So I would probably still put that in my top 3, where I think some people, La La Land had a few more critics than I think people were realizing. If it couldn't win in the first round, I think that's probably what did it in.
Yeah, and look, it's worth saying, La La Land did win Best Director, which doesn't use the preferential method of voting. So there's something to be said if they use the same method for Best Picture that they use for director for counting votes, maybe La La Land would have come out on top there too. So I think that could have something to do with it. The weird thing is, to me, and I thought Moonlight and La La Land were both very good films. So I preferred La La Land, to be honest. But I'm not upset that Moonlight won. I think that was a really good film too. But La La Land, I think, to me, felt more accessible. So I thought would be higher on people's ballots than Moonlight, which I thought could be. It's not as mainstream a type of film in how it's done. And I thought maybe there'd be some people who just didn't get around to seeing it or things like that.
And how interesting that, I mean, when was the last time, I'd have to go back and look, when was the last time a film that won Best Picture at Independent Spirit won Best Picture at the Oscars?
Slumdog Millionaire, maybe?
Yeah, small films, and Moonlight is the epitome of a small film. It might actually be the lowest grossing in the category. Somebody would have to correct me on that, but I know
Locker was very low.
But I mean, just out of all of these nominees.
Nominees.
It's definitely towards the bottom.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I mean, the math on the surface wouldn't seem to add up for Moonlight.
Moonlight, yeah.
Except for this passion for this film.
And as the night went on, it just seemed like the craftspeople really didn't love La La Land as much as I think we all thought they did. I think it probably was 4th or 5th in some of these categories getting nominated, because it just kept losing. Like, a musical lost sound mixing. Like,
right.
Which Riley pointed out is not unprecedented.
It's not unprecedented, but
it has happened a few times.
A Best Picture nominee, it's a musical, but when I saw the movie, I thought the audio was very soft, and I thought it was the theater until I saw it again, and I'm like, no,
What's interesting is that even before the Best Picture fiasco, I think the headline coming out of the Oscars, even if La La Land had won Best Picture, I think the headline coming out of this would be La La Land underperforms. A lot of people expected it to get 9, maybe 10. Some people were even saying 11, but I don't think anybody thought it would get as low as 7.
I thought 8 or 9.
Now it's gotten 6. So.
I did say at the beginning of I did say before the Oscars that I thought the range for La La Land was 6 to 12.
That's a big range.
It was a big range. I thought there were about 6 categories that could have won or lost. I thought there was sort of 6 locks, and the rest were up in the air. So I thought if it loses all the ones that it might not win, then it gets 6, and if it wins all of them, it might get 12. But
as far as musicals that have lost Best Picture, like this scored below like Cabaret. Like, Cabaret won 8 Oscars and lost Best Picture.
Cabaret and Gravity, though, have won. They're the 2 films that have won the most Oscars without winning Best Picture.
Yeah.
So that's a record level. Like, for La La Land to win 6 and not win Best Picture is there aren't many films that have won that many Oscars and not won Best Picture.
Well, there really is a clear cabaret connection with it winning director and actress and losing Best Picture. But
and the thing that's kind of weird about it is if you told me at the beginning of the night that La La Land and Moonlight were going to split the top 2 awards, picture and director, I would have said La La Land wins picture and Barry Jenkins takes director. I would never have seen this coming. Honestly, I would have said they're going to give Barry Jenkins director. He's deserving. He's going to make Oscar history.
Yeah. But maybe we
never picked this.
But maybe we shouldn't have thought that way because we come back to the preferential ballot.
Yeah.
I mean, the DGA is so, such a clear harbinger for Best Director, but they don't have a preferential ballot for director, but they do have one for Best Picture. And, we should have seen something like this coming when every winner for Moonlight, Mahershala Ali, Barry Jenkins, and Terrell McCraney, standing ovations, big cheers, big ovations when they won.
Even when their nominations were called big cheers.
Oh yeah. So I'm still kind of speechless about this.
It's still a room of what? 1,000 people, not all Academy members.
About 3,100.
3,100. Okay, so 3,000. But like a lot of them are dates and partners and things, and I don't know. Like there's a lot of your meat eater voters that we often talk about that probably weren't in the room.
Right, and even with that, what would appeal to the meat eaters more? Would Moonlight appeal to them, or La La Land, or Hidden Figures?
I thought Hacksaw Ridge was going to win for a minute there. I think Hacksaw Ridge. I could see how someone would go Hacksaw Ridge, Moonlight, Lion, La La Land. And I think one of the critics that we didn't pay enough attention to is Michael Mastino, who did not like La La Land. That should.
Oh, Michael Musto, yeah.
Yeah, Musto. Excuse me. It's been a long night. Clearly, we should have paid a little bit more attention to him because he was not one of La La Land's bigger supporters, and this is just, I mean, wow, wow.
It's huge, and Russia for La La Land, great news for Moonlight, but it will be something that we'll be scratching our heads over, I think, for quite some time to come. Of what. Firstly, what happened with the envelopes, but also what happened, like how did that upset happen? This is one of the big Best Picture upsets. La La Land seemed like a film that hadn't lost a huge amount of steam heading into tonight. It's not like, I think, the year where you had Chicago and The Pianist, and like really probably if the Oscars had gone a week later, maybe Chicago would have lost to The Pianist. You could sort of tell there was that momentum building. I do think even though La La Land was underperforming throughout the night, I wasn't particularly worried about its Best Picture prospects because, like, in my head, I was like, well, look, it's underperforming. Clearly the love isn't there that we thought there was, but it's still winning more Oscars than most Best Picture winners of the past 5 years. Like, I was thinking a bad night for La La Land is still a good night for a lot of Best Picture winners, so... But I was wrong. There was a sign that there was not the love, the enthusiasm for this film.
And those 6 other films that were tied for 5 Golden Globes each, who once held the record for the most, none of them really performed very well at the Oscars. So maybe that is also one of those things where the steam kind of ran out towards the end for La La Land. Like it just won so much. And we kind of saw it kind of start losing at the BAFTAs. The steam just started to run out in this.
Yeah.
It didn't have enough to keep going.
I just think when we look at, last year with Spotlight and this year with Moonlight, maybe you have to have light in your name to win. But I think
Moonlight after Spotlight. Yeah.
I think what we have to look at now, I think we have to move away from, or at least take into consideration more, what are the films that are universally loved that maybe don't win here or don't win here, but are always on the upper echelon? Because it seems like the passion vote is what, maybe we have a new trend with the preferential ballot, You just have to be a film that everybody really, really likes, rather than be the film that a few people love and a few people don't. You just have to be the film that everybody really, really likes. You have to be the Sally Field of Best Picture nominees.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's nuts. It is absolutely nuts.
We've seen 2 front runners in a row not nominated for that ensemble SAG. It's
Yeah.
and you know, I know everyone wants to say, oh, La La Land only had really technically 3 people in it. Well, Beast of No Nation was still nominated for ensemble last year with only 3 people. So they could have nominated that film if they wanted to.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask who's. I'm just checking who's next in our lineup.
Do we even know anything right
Myself and I think Mark answers.
Oscar Mojo. Robert Pice and Riley Chow. Jump in when you want to, guys, and then we'll I'll ask Tony to leave when you guys get in here. What about what was I going to say? What Amanda? Are there any other categories you want to talk about?
Yeah, I thought it was just, you could tell how much Denzel really wanted this. Like, people don't visibly cry after losing an Oscar, usually. So you could really, really tell he wanted to win for this. Like, he didn't just want his 3rd Oscar; he wanted it for this, and it was kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah. Just want to quickly touch on Amanda.
Predictions.
Sorry. Just want to quickly touch on Amanda, the big win for Fantastic Beasts and where to find them for best costumes. You said couldn't happen because Harry Potter never won anything.
I said I wouldn't predict it because Harry Potter never won anything. And can I tell you that this has not happened, this production costume design split, where both films were nominated for both awards, since I think it was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Gladiator did this. Like, that is how very rare it is for them for both films to be nominated for both and then to kind of split the categories.
Yeah. Well, so I was explaining to everyone
only the 18th time this has happened.
Yeah, as I was explaining the pre-show, it was the perfect combination of fantasy meets period was what got it over the line.
And I like Colleen Atwood, but there were 4 nominees or groups of people who that was their first time. So I just wanted to see she was just very cool. Like, thank you very much.
She was stunned.
You to my children.
She was completely stunned. She didn't think she was going to.
No kidding.
Tony, before I ask you to leave, are there any categories you wanted to talk about? Anything else aside from Best Picture that you thought was of note or you're particularly passionate about?
Just as a whole, rather than I think that I thought Kimmel was really, really strong. I thought he was a great conversational, like interacting with the audience, very natural, kept the show moving. I thought there was a lot of emotion in a lot of the acceptance speeches, which I really loved. I thought Mahershala was fantastic. I thought Viola Davis is a national treasure. And even in some of the smaller categories, you saw really emotional speeches. And kudos to the producers for not playing them off. I think only
ABC was never going to play off Viola Davis. She could have talked for 5 minutes before.
But even in some of the other categories, I thought it was really kind of nice that they let them have say. And I felt like the show had a really great balance of politics, and yet still really for the most part kept it about the movies. There were a couple of Kimmel's lines that I didn't care for. He seemed to be minimizing some of the nominees, like, oh, nobody's seen this movie, and which that bothered me a little bit. But overall, I just thought it was a really well done show that erupted into flames at the end in the best possible way, kind of like a Cherry's Jubilee sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks so much, Tony, for joining us. I'll get you to leave us now, and I'll see you in a couple. I'm sure we'll touch base later in the week. Thanks, yes. Tony.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, we're joined by Riley and Tom O'Brien. It's great to be chatting with you guys. I'll start off with you, Riley. I'm going to ask everyone who comes on, what was your thought on the big Best Picture debacle at the end this evening?
Well, I like how we have our biggest Best Picture upset in 10 years, and it's overshadowed immediately, or as it's happening, by them reading the wrong name. which was, an even bigger surprise. So that was a lot of fun. I guess trying to explain it, at first I thought, okay, well, it's the preferential ballot, so then, people can rank it ninth. But actually that doesn't matter because they're only counting up the number 1 piles and then the number 2s and then the number 3s until one film is over the line. So I guess everybody who liked La La Land voted La La Land, and everyone who didn't put it number 1 knew that they were not voting for it and consciously just didn't even bother ranking it 2 or 3. But.
I don't mind that theory. I think that's a good one where like it was really you were either voting for La La Land or against La La Land this year. So if you didn't have it number 1, you had it probably 6 or 7. You might have hated one of the other films and put that lower if you really didn't like something else, but have it low on your ballot. And then after that first round, if it didn't get over that 50% or very close to on the first round of counting, it may have just not been able to get many more after that. So that's I like that theory, Rye, actually. Tom, what are your thoughts on the Bedlam?
Well, I was working on fixing my computer. I missed the last 10 minutes. How'd it go?
Oh, okay.
You need to go. Just
No.
La La Land won Best Picture, Tom, as we all predicted, and then it didn't.
All of the producers gave speeches. They took their time.
Yeah.
That
got
sounds
to say
lovely.
everything they wanted to. Yeah.
I tell you, I mean, I love chaos at an award show. So it was,
you thought Adele winning was chaotic. They topped the Grammys.
ta-da! Oh Lord. Oh my God! Poor Warren Beatty. Oh, that's going to be in the first paragraph of his obituary.
He's never going to be invited back again. He's
Ever.
done.
I think
They'll get him to announce someone. He just won't be trusted with an envelope. Like it'll be like he can announce a clip package or something like that.
The only time he's coming to the Oscars again is as Annette Bening's +1. Like,
yeah, I'm afraid you're right. I mean, it's a shame because what an incredible story from Moonlight, and to have it completely upended by this cuckoo-ness.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it was such a good Oscars until that time. Yeah.
Like, I still think it was a very good Oscars because I think the sort of production side of things is probably not where this fell down or collapsed. It was someone handing something wrong to someone. Like, It wasn't because this wasn't a producer's go. Look, the 60 seconds after the wrong name was read, who knows who was calling what shots where. But I do think that, I wouldn't want this to take away from the show that was put together, which was fantastic. And if anything, the way they were able to direct and cover those final moments, I thought was quite good.
Yes. I mean, from a directorial point of view, it was terrific.
Yeah. And they let the show play out. They didn't sort of try to play anyone off or anything like that. They just let it get sorted out.
Well, it would have been even more of a controversy if they tried playing off Moonlight after La La Land gave it Best Picture, except, they're already like an hour over. At that point, they might as well let them do whatever they want.
What the heck?
Go for it.
And they've got the headlines that they're going to need.
Yeah. So,
oh my God.
Riley.
Articles, though, where they talk about how, they have all these procedures in place. This happens. And
yeah, I know. As I mentioned in a comment, thank God I had switched back my prediction to saying the wrong movie would would win.
Oh wait, you had Moonlight winning?
No. I had the occasion of the wrong movie being read out.
Oh,
that was brilliant. It was brilliant. No, it's just a shame. But. Gosh, I think all the speeches on the stage after the fiasco were gracious and lovely.
I'm glad that Warren Beatty had his time to explain himself as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really, you really had a sort of live mic there in the middle of the stage. And Kimmel had a go, Beatty had a go, the Moonlight, it was, It was crazy.
Faye Dunaway
oh, sorry.
disappeared. She like snuck off with the La La Land people. Like, I'm getting out of this mess. She wasn't going down with the ship.
Yeah, we've just had Robert join us, Amanda. So I'm asking you to bow out now. But is there one last category we haven't touched on, or moment from the night, or something you'd like to just touch on before you left?
How wonderful was Viola Davis? Is she not the most wonderful person? It meant so much. The tears. What? Viola winning?
Yeah, that speech. Yeah. How she talks about how, the graveyard, and it's like, oh, okay.
She always makes a point, though. I mean, now who's going to get to the EGOT first? Her, Helen Mirren, or Jessica Lange? We've got a 3-person race now. Well, with her and Lin-Manuel Miranda. But
Lin-Manuel Miranda. I was going to add Lin-Manuel.
Well, they need Grammys, and he needs an Oscar. So, Robert just left.
Oh, we lost Robert. Well, kick around for a little longer, Amanda, and if he comes back, I'll get you.
But it still meant a lot to her, and being on an ABC show doesn't hurt. Also, because they would have let her really go long before. You can tell the network.
Do they have a How to Get Away with Murder ad right after her win?
It just aired its season finale after this week. So, but. The network's like, you are not cutting her off. If she wins, so help us God, you are not cutting off Viola Davis.
I'm surprised they didn't have a ad ready to go of ABC would like to congratulate Viola Davis for her Oscar. I was about to say Emmy, but for her Oscar win tonight or something. I know sometimes on Australian award shows they'll have those sort of. The network that's hosting the awards will have their ads lined up to congratulate people for
It's
winning.
Been weird all year because, when Helen Hunt was nominated and won, and she was still on Mad About You, every other ad for NBC seemed to be, we'd like to congratulate Helen Hunt on her Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
We'd like to congratulate Helen Hunt on her Oscar win. It's like ABC never did one of those. Like, there was not one. Like, they must have thought, she's got this so in the bag. We don't need to. There was not one of them. And that was kind of surprising. But I'm sure we'll see one, because I'm sure they're going to try and parlay this into an Emmy. But that'll be interesting. Who's going to win an Emmy? The People versus or OJ Made in America, Viola Davis, or Mahershala Ali. I know Kevin Spacey's got to take a deep breath. He's no longer the only Oscar winner on House of
I'm sure that's killing him.
He's rolling his eyes.
He left too.
Yeah.
Well, he might be back. You never know with that show, but yeah.
Should we should we touch on Denzel Washington versus Casey Affleck? Casey Affleck prevailed in that jump ball race. Riley, what are your thoughts on this?
Do you want me to jump out now?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, you can jump out now, Amanda.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Amanda.
Yeah, bye, Amanda. Yeah, we had a couple tests for SAG this year. We had Mahershala Ali, who's been, he lost the BAFTA and he lost the Golden Globe. And then we also had Denzel Washington, who was not even nominated by the BAFTAs and also lost the Golden Globe. So it was a test to see how strong SAG is. And I guess it doesn't hold up if it's the only thing that you've won, because Mahershala, he did have the Critics' Choice, which was something, whereas Denzel, he kind of lost everything but SAG. I was a little surprised that Emma Stone won after the other 3 acting winners, because it kind of seemed like the critics had carried those 3. I thought maybe they would have been able to carry Isabelle Huppert just at that last minute as well.
Yeah, there are a lot of the toss-up races for La La Land. It lost screenplay and some of those the sound categories, but Emma Stone was able to win that tight race with Isabelle Huppert. What do you think about that, Robert?
I originally thought Emma Stone had it in the bag, and then as the night was going on, I was starting to think because La La Land lost a couple of things, and it did. And then when Casey Affleck won too, I was like, I think Isabelle could sweep in here, but I don't know. I think it comes down to how many people actually watch that movie. You know, it's in French, it's foreign language. I don't. I think probably just a lot of people probably skip that on their screener viewing, and it was her first nomination.
Yeah. One thing I will say, better movie L than La Vie en Rose, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
can't believe Academy members got through that a couple years ago. That being said, Marion was great in it. But anyway, Tom, what are your thoughts on this?
I think for me, the floor got taken away from me in the costume category, because it was a two film race, and then Fantastic Beasts come in. It's like, where the hell did that come from? And we may have quite a night ahead of us.
Yeah.
And that was the first indication that almost anything could happen.
Did you hear me explain, Tom, why Fantastic Beasts was going to win in the pre-show?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I put forward the case.
Well, bravo.
Yeah, thank you. I got pretty much everything else wrong tonight, so I like.
Hang on to that one.
With that one, I was like, oh, I'm on the money this year.
That woman, she barely seemed to be able to get to the stage, and I think it was her fourth win, they said, but so you'd think it would have been easier for her, but I guess she was just so shocked. She just wasn't prepared at all. She just didn't seem to know what to say once she got up there.
And she seemed to be way on the side in nominee type area.
Yeah. Well, Tom, what did you think of the lead actor race? Casey Affleck, Denzel Washington, that moment.
Boy, I was back and forth and back and forth. It took Denzel a few moments to stand up the way everyone else was. I did notice, because it's as genuinely shocked as he was when he won the SAG Award. I think that he was surprised that that didn't carry over, and I think it probably took him a few moments to really compose himself. And he put on, it was great, and he apparently has been very gracious and very out there. He really wanted this, and I felt a little sorry for him at that moment. But I had hoped Casey Affleck would come through.
Yeah, just some breaking news. I got on the email. He had her card in her hand the whole time. The card saying, and the Oscar goes to Emma Stone. So it wasn't her card. She said she's not trying to start any conspiracies, but whatever they're saying, it wasn't her card. So it's either a duplicate card or that's not what the card said. So it doesn't mean Warren Beatty was lying. It could mean that they printed off two Best Actress cards and they were in separate, whatever it was. But could be the guy at Kinko's could be the big culprit of of this. Is that a brand in the States?
This happened once on the Tony Award.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
Yeah. This happened once on the Tony Awards.
I don't know what that is, yeah. So, but there you go. Just while I was speaking on Emma Stone, I think she gets such a great performance in La La Land. I'm so happy, particularly in a night when it wasn't able to get that big win, that she was able to win that award. And I think she's one of my favorite actresses. So it was really nice to see her win. I thought definitely not the best speech of the night. She didn't give one like Viola Davis perhaps, but yeah. I thought a really nice speech too.
It was lovely, and it really seemed from the heart. She both got everybody covered that she had to thank, but she just felt so sincere, and that's one of the best things about her, as I suspect she is as a person. I hope.
And I think the thing, we know Chris was telling us before and how much the Oscar the Oscar contenders sort of know their odds at Gold Derby and things like that. Viola Davis would have known if she followed the odds that she had like a 90%, 95% chance of winning. She could have gone pretty prepared. Emma Stone would have known she was the front runner, had a good chance of winning. But for her, like, she would have been deluded if she thought she had it in the bag. Like, you would hope she was going in tonight going, well, there's a chance I might not win it. Isabelle Huppert could win it. Who knows? Natalie Portman, I don't know. So there's sometimes you get a bit more authenticity when they've come not knowing they're going to win. Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, they're more emotional.
They had a fascinating article, I think it was in the New York Times this week, about what it's like to campaign knowing that you're going to lose, focusing on the other 4 women in the supporting actress race.
Interesting.
And how do you plow through that, going to the cocktail parties, the red carpet interviews and the like, and they know that it's going to not result in what you want it to, and still do it. And that's something I didn't think I hadn't seen that angle before. But in this, all the other 4 were just extremely gracious, and it's one of those Oscar stories that I was very glad to see happen.
Yeah, Chris Beecham is letting us know that they have 2 cards for every category, 1 on each side of the stage. So there you go.
This is getting more confusing.
Yeah, even more confusing. Yeah. So there you go. So, like, we're going to learn a lot over the next week about the envelope process at the Oscars. I feel there's going to be a lot of good investigative reporting into the Oscars envelope process and accounting processes and things like that, I imagine. Robert, is there a particular category that you were particularly taken by tonight? Okay, no, he's Riley. What about you?
Well, you guys talked about how costume design and production design haven't split since 2000 when both films were up. And we saw kind of a similar thing happen in the sound categories where, Hacksaw Ridge and Arrival were nominated in both, but they split anyway. And that's something that we've only seen in 2008 and before that in 1967. So very rare. So that was fun. I was happy for, obviously I got La La Land wrong and, a bunch of other categories. I was happy to get a couple of upsets in editing. I called Hacksaw Ridge and Sing for a live action short.
Yeah. Can I ask you, Hacksaw Ridge had quite a good night. It won a couple of technical awards and stuff like that. When did Hollywood decide they were cool with Mel Gibson again? I don't remember. When did that come through? I just remember he was such a pariah 3 years ago, and then nothing happened, and now he's sort of being celebrated at the Oscars.
He has been shunned for a long time.
That is true. It has been a while.
And Casey Affleck has settled multiple sexual harassment lawsuits. So, and then he won Best Actor. So, they let something slide. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Hollywood. So, Robert, was there a particular category you were taken by tonight? Robert? I don't think he's there. So, I might, at this point, ask who else do we still need to join this call? Who's else on the list?
I think Marcus.
Marcus.
We've got to get Marcus in. Marcus, and I believe it's what about Chris Beecham? Marcus and Chris Beecham, and I'll get Charles Bright to join us a bit after them. But Chris and Marcus, let's get them in the mix at the moment. Tom, what else happened tonight? What did you think, Tom, of Jimmy Kimmel and the show as a whole?
I was shocked at Jimmy Kimmel. I thought, oh, here we go. Especially after Jimmy Fallon at the Golden Globes, I just thought, oh boy, I have a pretty good idea what it's going to be, and everything just fired. Everything worked. I mean, even the bit with the tourists, if it wasn't for how deft he was with the microphone, he really was able to go to every person cold. I don't think he knew who was coming in, and was able to create a funny bit. And, it may have gone a slightly long, but when you are bringing in, real people, you never know. And I think almost every bit worked. I think most of the Matt Damon stuff worked because Damon's a great straight man for that. And boy, I hope they ask him back. And when the show began, I thought Justin Timberlake has got to do the Oscars, host that, because he's so good. And that slow burn he did when Jimmy Kimmel was kind of roasting him from the stage. They've got two good people on their bench for next year.
Yeah. Marcus Dixon, how are you
What
feeling,
the heck
buddy?
happened? What? Okay, so after La La Land wins, I tweeted out, I'm texting friends, and then I look up, and like I saw the stagehands running around with envelopes, and I'm like, what's going on? This is weird. And then who came to the microphone first? Jimmy Kimmel or no? It was the producer, right? The producer of La La Land, who actually said we lost. Wow, so shocking. Never seen anything like this before.
Yeah. Charles Bright, you can join. You can join the chat now, Charlie Bright, because Chris is still working on some things. Boy, Gold Derby behind the scenes at the moment is also thrown into panic by all of this. At the end of the Oscars tonight, articles are getting reworked and blogs are getting updated. Information's being sourced about what happened backstage. Like it's a flurry, isn't it, Marcus?
Yes, and we should mention, of all of the experts, we have 30 experts from some of the best news outlets in the world. Only 2 got Moonlight right. Sasha Stone and Matt Atchity, is that how you pronounce his name? None of the editors got Moonlight. None of the top 24 got Moonlight. 2 of the All-Stars did. And they are Movie 2187 and Luis Alberto QH. So this is a huge shock. And someone earlier, maybe it was Riley, mentioned the fact that Moonlight won would normally be the story, but it's not the story. The story is the wrong envelope being read out, and everyone's blaming Warren Beatty, but he knew something was wrong. It was actually Faye Dunaway that read it.
We've been joined by, I think that's Charles Bright. Charles?
I've seen some crazy things in my days. But I tell you, I never seen nothing like this in all my years of award show watching. I guess I'm just a tired old man who doesn't know one thing from the next. I tell you what. God damn it, what the hell was that?
I don't know. It was absolutely...
That's the craziest thing I've ever seen happen. I was like, okay, La La Land, okay, and I'm just typing, and then I hear all of a sudden one of the producers go, oh, well, we lost. And it was like, what?
Right. This is the Miss America times 1,000 when Steve Harvey...
times 1,000,000. It's, oh, God, it's ridiculous. Wow. This is like one of the craziest things I have ever seen
on television.
And I'm trying to think, what's the only thing that's crazy? I've seen someone challenge someone to a duel on live television. Thank you, Senator Zell Miller of Georgia.
I saw Donald Trump give an inauguration speech on television. This
don't worry, we roll on acid for that.
Dude, yeah, boy. It was nuts. It was crazy. Charles, what are your thoughts?
It's weird. Sometimes when we have this split happen, especially in recent years, we've kind of seen it coming. Like last year, we knew Best Picture was up in the air, even though we were pretty sure that Iñárritu was going to win Director again. the 12 Years a Slave year, it was very clear that that was the front runner to win Best Picture, and Gravity was going to sweep the technical awards, even before the Oscar nominations came out that year. That seemed pretty solid. I'm just trying to think of recent years.
12 Years a Slave and Gravity were the other ones. So yeah, 4 of the past 5 years now we've had splits.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Argo year, usually you're able to see this kind of thing coming, but this is, for it to have played out this way is really just completely unprecedented and unorthodox. And that's the crazy thing, is that this whole thing is kind of paved over by, this whole technical mishap of somehow Warren Beatty accidentally getting handed the backup Best Actress envelope. Because I think that's what Chris was telling you guys, that they have each person, you see, they have the 2 people with the briefcases. Each one of them has a full set of envelopes in there. And so somehow he got handed that envelope incorrectly. And you could actually see, I actually rewound it on my DVR. You could see when Warren Beatty opened the envelope, he actually looked behind him. He was looking backstage to see if there was someone back there going, that like maybe they were trying to get is someone trying to get my attention there, that we have the wrong envelope.
Right. And why did Faye Dunaway not notice? It said Emma Stone La La Land. Why did she not notice that?
Because she's crazy. We haven't seen her, at least Warren Beatty has put out movies. We haven't seen her do anything relevant since 1982.
Yeah.
I love Faye Dunaway. She is magnificent. She is like she's magnificent in Bonnie and Clyde and Network and Chinatown. But still, I mean,
Of all of the categories, there's 24 categories. What are the chances that it... Yeah, why couldn't it have been live action short? Why was it
Simply.
Jeez, what are the chances?
Never happened. I mean, this is just ridiculous. And I just, this is... I mean, screw the Oscars. I mean, screw next year's Oscars. I mean, think about, all the other award shows that we have to get through this year, the Tonys and the Emmys. They're going to be poking fun at that mercilessly.
Yeah. I can see someone coming up with a bit like at one of these awards where they've got 5 envelopes and they're shuffling them up and all sorts of things like that.
Here's how we choose the winners.
Yeah. I think maybe they'll need to bring in next year, maybe it's a problem all the envelopes are the same color. Maybe they need Best Picture is a red envelope, Best Actress is a green envelope, and
so they just this year, they had different envelopes this year. For the past couple of years, since the 2010 Oscars, they changed, because it used to just be the regular paper envelopes. Until 2010, then they changed it to these gold envelopes that on the front would have a white box and the name of the category on that box very clearly printed. The ones they had this year were more rectangular, and it didn't look like it was as clearly written on there. So they may just not have seen it because it was just too dark, or they just trusted the people who handed them the thing.
Yeah. Oh, we've got Tom O'Brien on the move. Tom, I'll ask you to leave in a minute, but Tom, is there one sort of category or moment we haven't touched on that you'd like to talk about it briefly?
I thought the Asgard Farhadi moment was a very gracious one when he won for the Salesman. It could have been a real political screed, but the note that he did really had him coming across as an artist and a humanitarian. And I thought that in what could have been a real tirade, he I think, acquitted himself graciously and the way a real Oscar winner should.
It's interesting.
Did he get a standing ovation?
I think
maybe.
I don't think he did.
There were a lot of standing O's.
Yeah. I was expecting there to be one for him. It's actually interesting. The woman who accepted that Oscar, Anousheh Ansari, she's the first woman of Iranian descent in outer space. She's an astronaut.
Yeah. So that's,
wow.
that was cool. I thought
From
that
my
was
score.
sort of your sort of sincere political block of the awards. Was you had best foreign language film. We had that speech, which really touched on this sort of us and them and sort of mentality and trying to fight against that. Then you had the animation feature, a comment made about walls, being against walls to divide people, and then the Zootopia win, leading to another comment about the other and not being driven by a fear of the other. And it seems like that's the point. Like Jimmy Kimmel had a lot of good Trump jokes. There are a few references elsewhere about immigrants and stuff. But it seemed like that block, you had some consistent messaging about the idea of them. And I thought it was quite powerful. And they all touched on it really well. And I think the Zootopia guys were able to be a bit more articulate during the Golden Globes in hitting their theme. But I think they touched on it well at the Oscars too. And I'm just so happy to see Zootopia win. That was such a, I think, such a funny.
I thought of you
Yeah.
at the moment.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, so funny. I love a good like mystery thing as well. Like it's a really good like noirish sort of thing, and also what a great message about fear and stuff like that, and politics.
Yeah, they had a lot of spinning plates, and they carried it off beautifully.
I was very
Yes.
I was very satisfied that I got 2 out of the 3 short film categories correct.
Ooh, nice. Which ones?
And I think that documentary and animated. Live action, I think, was a bit more of an upset for a lot of people. I know you said you predicted Sing, but I don't think a lot of people were predicting it, so it wasn't as. So I was fine with it winning because it's not like, oh, it was one of the ones I was struggling with. Like if it had been La Femme et la TGV, I would have been very angry with myself because I wanted to put that number 1, but I kept Time Code in there. But also, I also liked that movie as well. I thought Sing was a very good movie. I was just glad it wasn't Silent Nights.
Yeah.
Riley, is there one more category you want to touch on, or one moment from the show?
I guess just to keep with the shorts, I'm sad that that Watani film wasn't able to win. I wonder if now that Netflix has won this short category, like, will they be able to campaign enough and win more shorts? Because we haven't seen them able to snatch the kind of the documentary award when they've had very similar fare, but now they've broken through with a film that's very similar to Winter on Fire and The Square in The White Helmets, and that's very technically excellent. Maybe I found it a bit cold.
Yeah.
It is.
Well,
it is
might
kind
ask you, Riley and Tom, to leave us now. Bid us adieu, and I'll sort of wrap up the show with Marcus and Charlie. Chris Beecham, feel free to join when you're done with your things. Tom O'Neill, if you are out there anywhere, come on down. We'd love to hear your take. Beam yourself in.
There's another big moment we forgot about. Oscar's Biggest Loser finally won. Kevin O'Connell, on his 21st nomination for sound mixing, picks up his first Oscar, and in a big upset over La La Land. And his speech was wonderful, and I was very happy to see him win.
Yeah, huge win. I remember the year that he lost to Dreamgirls, and he got blasted by the Dreamgirls guys. And the press room, they were going, he lost as soon as he lost, he left the show. He was such a sore loser.
Well, so did the guy from Dreamgirls, Eddie Murphy, who lost that evening.
Yeah.
So,
well, and also then it turned out that because I think these guys were sick of answering questions about Kevin O'Connell, like this overdue guy that won 3 before, and then it turned out he had left the show after his category because his mum was sick in hospital.
Oh, okay. Who he dedicated the award to tonight.
Oh, fantastic! Oh, that's such a great like full circle.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
That was actually the most emotional part of his beautiful part of his speech. I'm going to be writing an article about the best speeches of the evening, and his is easily up there. It was a very beautiful moment for him.
Yeah. So
I was disappointed by Casey and Emma, both of their speeches. I thought, especially Casey, who literally said something like, I wish I had something better to say, but I don't.
Well, at least he knew not to just go up there and be like rambling for 2 solid minutes. he got up there, he said some names, he did what he needed to do, and then he just got off, and then he got off stage.
How
Thank
pissed
God.
did Denzel look? He did not look happy.
I need to go and see that again because I missed that. I missed that reaction.
And it's got to be part of it. Like, this was a performance he directed himself. Like, he must feel so like maybe in his mind that is his favorite performance because of how involved he was in the whole project of it. Like, I know we often have at Emmys, actors are submitting episodes they directed, even though it might not be their best episode and things like that. And Denzel Washington was incredible in the movie. Like, you know, I was trying to think the other day who I thought gave a better performance, and I like different things about each one. So I'm glad I was an Oscar voter for that category this year.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing about Denzel and the directing aspect of that is that, you know, he was really willing to make the character as unlikable as it needed to be. Which, you know, sometimes you would think if someone was so concerned, you know, with their vanity. I'm not saying people think that of Denzel, but, you know, sometimes you might think an actor, if they're directing themselves, they might try to tone it down and make their character a bit more likable. But no, he went there with that. He was willing to say, no, this is what the character needs to be.
Yeah.
And so
it's very rare to have a film like La La Land win DGA, BAFTA, and PGA and lose the Oscar. The last time that happened was 10 years ago. Crash beat Brokeback. Brokeback had won those exact three precursors
and everything else,
and did not win the Oscar.
And add to that it also won the Oscar for Best Directing.
Yeah.
It also won that, which is in recent years hasn't been as much so, but has traditionally been a precursor as well. What do you guys think about the La La Land loss to Moonlight? We've talked about the moment with you guys. We haven't talked about why did Moonlight beat La La Land. Charles, do you think that the La La Land team didn't campaign enough in Wisconsin? Do they not do enough for the Oscar?
God damn it! La La Land did not court the working class enough. The
meat eater voters in Wisconsin, they were all in Hollywood. They were all on the LA scene.
The production assistant union, local 412. That's a good one. I don't know. I think again, the preferential ballot. I think this is actually really interesting that this film prevailed because, you think about what happened, 11 years ago with Brokeback Mountain winning everything, but then, of course, it was upset by Crash, a movie with a social message, but, there's obviously all that talk about, homophobia, which I hate calling it. It's just ignorance in the Academy amongst the older, more conservative voters. And here we have something that's kind of the direct opposite of that. Where, this movie that's supposed to be very broad and accessible and is this big, it is very, and not to take away anything from it, but it is a big spectacle of a movie, losing to this very intimate character study about this experience of being Black and gay and an outcast. And I think it's kind of a very interesting poetic justice, maybe, if you will. But I think that's interesting, and I think, even though yes, I was rooting like hell for La La Land to win. If that says that the Academy is going to be more open, not just this year but in future years, to recognize stuff that may not that may be outside what most people would be comfortable with, I think that would be a great thing.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like, I was thinking actually towards the end of the show, like how great a year it was for diversity with Moonlight, with screenplay and the supporting actor winners and a few of the other winners in the other categories as well. And then I was thinking, and then you have Emma Stone win and Casey Affleck win, and like you couldn't get a wider end to the night in some ways with those last three categories. And then I preferred La La Land as a movie. I would have voted for La La Land in the category, but it was sort of nice to to be the sort of, I don't know, is coda the right word? The coda for the evening was Moonlight winning.
Moonlight is the lowest grossing of all 9 Best Picture nominees, as $22 million, and that's it. I would have bet money on the fact that if La La Land didn't win, Hidden Figures would have been the winner. Because of the SAG ensemble, because of the box office and the accessibility. And when those ladies came out, they got a standing ovation just for walking on the stage. That's how much this movie is loved.
Marcus, it won nothing else.
Thank you, Matt.
Do you mean tonight?
Hidden Figures, like, how would Hidden Figures have won Best Picture?
I mean, did you have it in your number 2 slot, Marcus?
Yeah, I had it in my number 2 slot.
Okay, because I had Moonlight in my number 2 spot. Because, it made sense. I mean, some of that stuff does make sense, but you also think, it's just like, if there was any category where it was going to, probably make the mark, it was probably going to be adapted screenplay. I don't think it would have been picture. But then again, we'll just never know.
La La Land won 6 Oscars. Like, it was not a film they hated.
No, it's just that had the better, Moonlight just had the better consensus. I think La La Land was a close second. I mean, after the whole, when Warren Beatty was explaining the envelope thing, I was thinking, I think we better have an immediate revoting of Best Actress so that Isabelle Huppert can win.
Yeah. It's a shame. Yeah, we almost had Emma Stone winning 2 Oscars. Is that like?
Oh God!
Stone, you won again for La La Land. Very good job.
That because just in case we're in some sort of parallel universe or something. I just feel bad that she's going to be linked to this whole thing, to that, the fact that it was her envelope and the envelope for her, and it was.
And it's so funny, like, if this mistake had happened with any other, like, sort of, if Isabelle Huppert had won Best Lead Actress, we wouldn't have had this drama.
Right.
Yeah. Like, it's the category that was read second last was Best Actress. And it's because the winner of that category was in the movie that was the front runner to win Best Picture.
Yeah, it was the perfect storm.
Yeah, and I was like, I can't remember if it was Tom O'Brien or Robert that said this, but when La La Land was losing those early Oscars, even by the time they got to before they got to director, I was thinking to myself, I'd be nervous if I were Emma Stone right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And with Casey, I mean, I'm glad I stuck with him. I stuck with him in my prediction. Because it just, like, the SAG, just as big as it was, just didn't seem to be enough for me. And I said I'd rather be, like Chris always says, I'd rather be right for the wrong reasons.
Right. There were, I mean, like I said in our pre-show, both of those guys had reasons that you could predict them to win. But the reason I stuck with Casey is because Casey just had, every single precursor pretty much he won except for one. And that was SAG. And the reason Denzel won SAG, I really believe this, is because websites out there really, really pushed the fact that he had never won. And that really helped him take that award.
Yeah, I definitely think that. It's definitely... No, go on.
What other categories do you want to talk about, Charles?
Let me think here. I have my handy little guide here. Let me check here. Let's see, we talked about animated feature, right? Because Utopia was awesome.
Are you still getting that static sound, Marcus, on your earphones?
A little bit, yeah.
I'll try unplugging mine. My earphones have been a bit staticky myself. I'll just run with it there.
I have a fan on here. I can turn it on.
Do you have you're hearing an echo now? I guess you won't when I'm talking, because
No,
let me know if you're hearing an echo. I'll put my earphones back in.
Okay, it sounds good.
Yeah, I think that was my fan. I think that's what it was.
Okay. Well, whatever it is, apologies to those watching for any static sound or fans or whatever.
All 7 of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm looking at our numbers. We got more than we had in the pre-show, so that's good. I wonder what has for the Oscars, what possibly happened to the shows.
How about OJ actually winning the documentary prize? I think that was. I mean, it had been winning everything, but I still think this was really big for it, this was really something very momentous. This for something that was so associated with television to prevail here, and especially something that I believe now is the longest film to ever win an Oscar.
Yes. What do you think about that, Marcus?
Sorry, I was reading something. Are you talking about the OJ one?
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, the OJ one. I mean, we all saw that coming. It won every single precursor that there is. So if you had voted against that,
I had taken it out of my top prediction for about 2 hours earlier today, and right before they closed the center, I put it back at number 1.
OJ?
Yeah, the OJ movie. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would have loved to see Ava DuVernay win. Her day will come. But yeah, OJ, Zootopia, those were good. What about foreign film, The Salesman? Did you guys see that one coming?
Yeah. That one I knew was coming. I was nervous because, of course, the thing that Chris and Tom O'Neill and so many of the other people I talked about was how all these Academy members had all said that their favorite one was A Man Called Uwe.
Right.
And yeah, and they had voted for that one, and that was the one that really concerned me. I was pretty certain that Tony Erdmann was not going to win.
I did predict The Salesman. I switched to that the day of the Muslim ban, and I thought it just seems right to me. But if there was an upset, I think Tony Erdmann would have done it because it's the most famous of them all. And if you're not watching them, maybe you're just going to tick the name of the one that you've heard of.
Well, yeah, because the new way that you don't have to attend special screenings for anymore. So even if you don't see all the movies, you can see your ballot and you see Tony Erdmann there, and you go, "Oh, I've heard a lot of good things about that, so I might just check it off."
Chris Beecham. I don't know. I feel like it's how to say the old joke of like, aside from the obvious, Mr. Lincoln, how was the play?
The play was great.
Yeah. You love the show.
Me having to rerun Oscar's calculation prediction scores was not fun. I literally had to email Tom and Paul because I didn't know what to, after they announced the winner, I had already entered 23 categories as the night went on. I'd come in here every, 20 minutes or so and do the next 3 or 4 categories. And so I sat down here for Best Picture, entered, as soon as they said La La Land, I entered it because, if I'm calculating costume design guild awards and there's 3 that we're predicting and there's, say, 600 people predicting, it doesn't take 3-4 minutes to run. 5,400 people over 24 categories I knew would take a little while. So I just started calculating scores, kind of like Marcus sent out the tweet. And as soon as that happened, my first reaction is not, wow, that's interesting or that's fun. I'm literally having a stop the presses moment. I mean, how do I stop these scores from calculating? So something we've never really had to do. So somebody on our tech team figured out how to do it though, and everything's fine.
Oh,
I'm looking at my score. All I care about is that I beat Tom O'Neill. Sorry, Tom, I took you down. But it looks like me, Chris, Daniel, Paul, we had a 4-way tie.
Well, you did say, Marcus, you wanted this to be the year you got 100% correct. Did you get that 100% you were pitching for?
Yes, of the ones I got right, I got 100% of those right.
Okay.
Yes.
You always get 100% of the ones you got right.
Let me just say real quick, I'll pull this up because I don't even remember the number. Hold on just a second. Our user winner, in other words, the best person, only one person was on top. Nobody was tied at the top. Let me get the number here. Because it's fascinating what they got right. I told Marcus this was going to happen we were going back and forth on messages on our phone. Our top, it's pulling, SMH GARP, 83.33%, 20 out of 24 categories. the one that, I mean, this one thing, people, if you're passionate about a movie, sometimes you predict it. So, or you could just really, really feel like everybody's wrong about La La Land. I'm predicting Moonlight, whatever. This person predicted the actual combination of Hacksaw Ridge winding sound mixing and Arrival winding sound editing. How anybody, I mean, it's one thing if you go, you know what? I think they're going to go Hacksaw on both sounds, or they'll go Arrival on both sounds. But to get it and then get the right combination of it, that's amazing to me.
Yeah. What were the 4 they got wrong?
Oh, don't ask me that.
Okay, sorry, Chris. I didn't know what you were.
I remember Denzel.
I could pull that up right now if you guys
okay.
keep talking.
And what's the name of that person who won, Chris?
SMH Garp.
SMH Garp. Congrats, man. That's a mammoth effort. Like usually, like I can't imagine someone getting a score that high.
There's 20 people behind. I don't know if it's a him or a her, with 19 out of 24 correct. And then the next group down, there's a lot at 75%, but we actually have 3 experts. We had 30 experts predicting. 3 are at 75%, meaning they got 18 out of 24. And that's Joyce Ng from TV Guide.
She always does well, doesn't she?
Didn't I say she's one of the ones I always watch? Michael Mustow from Out.com. And who was my other one? Well, it's right in the headline. I should know. Hold on a second. Oh, Tariq Khan from Fox News.
Wow. So I'm looking at predictions.
Yep.
This person did not get Casey Affleck.
Right, so Denzel they picked.
Right, they were picking Denzel. For production design, they did. They went with Fantastic Beasts instead of La La Land. Won that one. Documentary feature, they predicted Fire at Sea, and this is unique to me because we just were saying that OJ won every single precursor.
Yeah, that was
this is a person that takes a lot of chances.
Yeah. And this year it paid off, and they took a lot of
paid off. But if they had gone, then they wouldn't be the kind of person that would pick Moonlight or would pick the sound ones we talked about. So,
or the combination of Moonlight, because I'm guessing he got Moonlight and Damien Chazelle.
Yes,
right.
And the fourth
that split is
right.
Amazing.
That's amazing. And the fourth one they got wrong was live action short. This person predicted Time Code, which is what I did as well. And the winner was Sing, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So good
Chris,
job.
I've got so many questions for you, Chris. The first is, could you just give us your take on the mistake at the end of the night, the reading of the wrong name? You were the one who emailed us through to say that there are 2 envelopes, one on each side of the stage. Do you want to just give us?
I think that's still the case. I remember from Steve Pond, who's now at the Wrap, used to write great articles every year. Just all these details. You'd have to wait a year. It was in Premiere Magazine. He'd get all this backstage access, and then he'd put them all in a book, like all those years. It's like maybe 15 years worth. But anyway, I remember him talking about the accountants each have a set of envelopes, and they're on opposite sides of the stage. And their job is, it never happens, but if somebody reads the wrong thing, which is why I never bought the Jack Palance thing, their job is to run out or have some way to get notice on stage if the wrong thing has been made. Wouldn't it be so much worse if it was an individual person?
Yeah.
But let's say, they said Emma Stone and it was Isabelle Huppert.
Yeah.
I mean, all those producers and the cast and the crew, they could kind of walk off arm in arm together, with a big mistake. But can you imagine the shame? Not that you did anything wrong. If it was just like you standing up there by yourself and you're told, no, you're not the winner. Well, like the Miss Universe thing a few months ago or a year ago.
I have a question. From the moment Faye Dunaway says La La Land to the moment when the stagehands come out, that is a long time. What were they doing? Why did it take that long for them to come out and make the switch?
It'll all come out this week. I don't know.
I'll tell you one thing that I suspect is that because it was Best Picture, and like what you were saying, Chris, because there were so many people on there, and you had the third producer was in the middle of giving his remarks when he went, "Oh, and we lost." It's because I think there's just so many people.
I think Charlie's right. I think, let's say you're the accountant. Okay, you know there's a problem. You're looking at the stage. You're probably talking to the stage manager. That's the guy with the headset that's right at the edge of the curtain, sending presenters out, all that. He's probably looking at the stage manager because the director's not even anywhere close.
Yeah, he's going to saying,
all these people are on stage. We've got a mistake. What do we do? How do we get the word over there to the microphone?
Yeah. What Chris, what was going through your head as that was unfolding? As someone who spent so many years watching awards, watching Oscars, just what were you thinking?
It's so weird. Most of my life it was just watching any of these shows, but now that I'm working behind the scenes, and we're so lucky, Marcus and I, we get to go to a lot of these, but we just don't go to the Oscars. It's too much of imagine the Super Bowl of, journalism. On the red carpet, you're not going to get anybody to stop. They're just going to stop for E! And Entertainment Tonight and, the big ones. And in the press room at the Oscars is not even in the same building. It's in the hotel next door. So Tom, advised us last year when we both really started doing this of you go to all the other ones, but you might want to just work from home on the Oscars. But anyway, I'm so glad we were in our apartments being able to work. But I'm selfishly, as that's going on, like I said before, my only concern is trying to figure out how to stop the score report from running.
Yeah. What do you think it means?
I'm watching what's going on, but it's kind of in the background.
Yeah, I thought, and I said this earlier, that is incredible, was that we had an awards moment of a loser having to announce that they hadn't won and that someone else had won.
He did a wonderful job of it, though. I mean, he's going to get a lot of mileage out of that in terms of just being well liked in the industry, I think.
No one did better than I would like.
The other one. I mean, Warren Beatty's private and doesn't like to go out and do stuff anyway, and he rarely works. Faye Dunaway's about to hit the talk show circuit like you've never seen.
Yeah.
And she has nothing better to do and would love to do that.
That's what I was saying.
So she's about to have the career peak of her life, even bigger than the Oscar win. So
right.
Well, there's that infamous picture of her the day after she won. With I guess it was at the hotel she was staying at. There's that infamous picture of her Oscar on this table at the pool side of the hotel, and she's in her bathrobe looking at all the newspaper coverage of the next day. And now to have this insane interest in her again, I think is very interesting.
Well, I don't blame these producers at all. I mean, the accountants are hired by the Academy. You don't Sorry, I'm needing some water. You don't anticipate such a thing happening. I mean, you have plans in place to fix it, but you don't. If it's never happened in 89 years, you don't anticipate it actually happening. So the fact that think about it. It wasn't like 15 minutes later and they're in the press room and they fix it. It happened all. How long did the producers talk? Less than 90 seconds before they got it fixed. So, that's pretty good for a live show with 25 people on stage. I thought the producers produced as good an Oscar ceremony from their end of things that I've seen since the year that Hugh Jackman hosted. And that was Bill Condon and Bill Mechanic. The graphics, the music, the choice of presenters, Jimmy Kimmel, the thing with the, you had three people talk about the people that were real inspirations to them, and then they got to come out and present with them.
That was cool.
And then the Matt Damon "We Bought a Zoo" bit. That was the perfect sort of line to that.
And to do it last. My only concern with the producers' choices, because I always look at an award show from, what did the producers plan? Did they do a good job of planning? And, all the things we just talked about. And then what were the winners, losers, that kind of thing, which they have no control over. Who gets on stage, who accepts awards, that kind of thing. So from their end of things, they made two huge mistakes to me.
Okay.
Amy Adams, does not present adapted screenplay. She's got a movie in that category.
Yeah.
Ben and Matt don't present original. They've got a movie in that category. Well, Ben doesn't really, but it's his brother. And it's Matt Damon's movie. So just, they were back to back. Just flip them. What was Matt? Why didn't Matt and Ben present adapted and Amy present original? I don't understand.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
I always hate that when somebody's got a vested interest in presenting an award where they're in the movie or for some reason are attached to the movie.
Yeah.
Speaking of presenters, and I totally agree with you on those, Brie Larson was vocal about not wanting Casey Affleck to win. And watch her face after she reads it, and then when those two are walking off backstage together, she is very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable.
I didn't notice, but I will say she's 1 year removed from an Oscar win. She's the only presenter in that last 45 minutes or so where the presenter names are getting bigger and bigger. It wasn't even pre-built. It was like, coming up, Leo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Ben Affleck. She was never mentioned once. I just thought, well, what a difference a year makes, you know?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like, it was nuts. But yeah, I thought that was a fantastic show. I thought Kimmel was such a good host. And like I was saying this earlier, Chris, but I do think that was a bad moment, the reading the wrong envelope, but I think they covered it really well. Like,
well, it's not the producer's fault.
No, it's not the producer's fault. And they, I think, as you said, dealt with it quickly, but it also, the way it was filmed and directed, I thought was done quite well. It's given it was something they weren't.
And how about that opening with Justin Timberlake? Have we ever seen a nominated song open the show? I mean, I don't remember that happening. And to have somebody as energetic and, you know, charismatic as him, and a song that's, you know, been on the radio for months. And it got the audience like enthused. They were up out of the Oscar audience is one of the worst in the world generally. They got their careers on the line. They're so nervous. I've seen so many ceremonies where they look so bored sitting there, no matter what's going on. It had them up and clapping and dancing in the first 5 minutes. I just thought that was tremendous.
I've been campaigning for Justin to host the Oscars for a while now. I think Jimmy Kimmel did so well. I want him to come back next year. But if they do decide to go for someone new, Justin Timberlake is.
Well, we had word a couple of years ago that it might have been maybe a year and a half ago. ABC, forget Jimmy Kimmel part, ABC and the Academy would really like to get back on a track where they've got a production team and a host for like a run. You know, for most of their run, you know, you think about a Billy Crystal, a Johnny Carson, a Bob Hope, even a Whoopi Goldberg, you know, doing it. They don't like necessarily having to like start back at the beginning every single year. And they'd like to, you know, start up some new traditions and things. So I would say, especially the way Jimmy even handled the ending, I would say he works right across the street and he works for ABC. I mean, I think it's his job as long as he wants it.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of thought that about 20 minutes into the show. I thought, well, Jimmy Kimmel's going to be the host of this for the next couple of years at least. Like, he's doing such a good job. It makes so much sense for ABC to like, it's good news for them having their late night talk show host on that stage. Yeah. And the Academy's going to be pleased with it. Like, unless ratings in a couple of years start to just nosedive, I think he'll have it. Yeah, I think he is the next Bob Hope, Johnny Carson, or Billy Crystal.
He was so comfortable. I remember Marcus and I were backstage for last year's Emmys, and I, you know, 6 months ago or whenever that was, and I said, he is so much better this Emmys than he was the previous one where he seemed so nervous. And I said, you know, he's one of the rare people that knows how to improve. And I think that Emmy job got him this Oscar job. They were like, okay, if he could show that he made those kind of improvements. And he was just so comfortable with himself and so funny. And that whole, I think I heard you talking earlier, the whole thing with the bus, that could have been a disaster.
That's what I was afraid of.
It could have been just awful because you don't know these real people. You don't know what they're going to do or say. What if they'd been a big bunch of lugs, you know, with nothing funny to say, or I'm hearing echo.
Oh, sorry. I'll put my earphones back in, Chris.
Oh,
I
that's
love
okay.
that bit with the Starline bus. I think it went on a little too long, but it was still good. He was channeling Ellen DeGeneres, who's my favorite Oscar host of all time. Where he's remember she brought in the pizza man, right?
Yeah.
And she did the Oscar selfie. She got down into the crowd. She talked to the stars, and Jimmy did that almost maybe better than Ellen. He out-Ellened Ellen.
I think he was better than Ellen.
Really.
And I kind of felt that bit going on a bit too long, but then it's also just a logistical thing, like what was going on at the end with the Best Picture envelope. You just had all those people, so you were trying to get them through and trying to get an equal amount of time saying, oh hey, shake hands and kiss Ryan Gosling, and everybody. Did you notice when everybody got to Meryl Streep, they kissed her hand?
Yeah.
Is she like Pope of the Oscars now or something? I don't know.
Yeah, it was a good good moments, and I think you saw Fallon when the prompter didn't work at the beginning of the Globe, sort of tense up a bit and sort of not know how to handle it. Kimmel showed that he was really good at the stuff that was thrown at him, that he wasn't anticipating, that he was just as comfortable when there was a mistake made at the end or when he's dealing with people just off the street that he's never spoken to before, that he was delivering his pre-prepared material.
And
The
self-deprecating.
Matt Damon stuff was tremendous. Marcus, I think you texted or said something about that was one of the funniest things you've ever seen on the Oscars.
One of the funniest I've ever seen when Jimmy Kimmel is the conductor in the orchestra and he's cutting off Matt Damon just for presenting a category. I think it was original screenplay. It was so funny. I've never seen that before.
The political stuff Kimmel did was so good too. Like the sort of big speech on how overrated Meryl Streep was such a nice, ironic way of dealing with that without just sort of being defensive or being like, it was just like a really clever way of sort of addressing that. And even like the Swedish the guy from Sweden who's like, oh, our prayers and sympathy are with you for last week and things. Where he didn't need to over explain the jokes or make it really obvious, but just nice, clever bits that didn't dwell on the things too much.
And you could hear it was really working too. You could hear the audience really responding to him, and that I really liked. And not just thinking, okay, I'm thinking he's funny, and it's working on television. It's good that it's also working in the room, and you can hear that in there as well. Because sometimes you can just hear that it's just that stuff just does not work.
And from a prediction standpoint, I'm happy with how I did. I mean, there was a lot of shockers, but to get Best Picture wrong again is really, really hurting my ego.
I will say, I mean, I'm embarrassed by my score too, but I mean, there were some you just couldn't. I guess we had one guy that could, but I was thrilled that this year, for the first time ever, on these really tough ones, the big ones especially, actor, supporting actor, original screenplay, I got a pad out and just said, I'm going to take myself and my emotions out of this, and I'm going to write down every award, say that Denzel and Casey have won, and it really surprised me to when I really looked at the pad. I'm like, I personally want Denzel to win, but Casey has won every televised award except for the SAG, and then a bunch of individual critics awards like New York and so forth. So when I looked at it on paper, I was really pleased that I got Casey, Mahershala, and Manchester right, because those weren't easy to predict.
Yeah. What's your theory, Chris, as to how Moonlight won Best Picture?
Well, I think what you all said earlier, the preferential ballot in Best Picture, but throughout the night, I think we saw this steak eater vote thing come into play with Hacksaw and Arrival and some of the others. So I don't think that's their kind of movie. So I don't really know if Arrival had won or Hacksaw, or even Manchester's a very male-based, something that they can identify with, a guy in his early 40s, in desperate need of different kinds of help. I mean, I think that would have made more sense from that standpoint. But Moonlight was really, I mean, it was in my second spot, so we all knew that it was really very much beloved this season.
Yeah,
I think the campaigners for La La Land and the studio throughout the last few months, privately, not even telling us, but I had to feel this way. They were worried about expectations. You don't want to be, even from just a fan standpoint, you don't want to be that movie that everybody tells you is so wonderful and you've got to go see, because inevitably, this happened to all of us. When you finally get to the theater and you see it, you're like, oh, okay. You get let down. And I think they managed expectations last year with Spotlight, different studio, I mean, because it had its up and downs during award season. But La La Land was such a front runner. How often did we hear people say, "Oh, I liked it, but it wasn't like the greatest movie of the last 30 years," like I've heard.
Nearly all my friends said that. Like nearly all my friends, like non-awards watchers or anything, either said, "Yeah, I was disappointed by La La Land," or "Oh, really?"
Only because of expectations.
Yeah. So I also do some teaching, and there's one boy that I teach he's about 10 years old, who's seen it 6 times and loves it. But other than that, like no
Chris,
one that I've spoken that passionate about it. So
Chris, the people that ran the La La Land campaign, they also had Moonlight, didn't they? So
they did.
So they win no matter what. So they're having a really good night tonight because Moonlight won 3, La La won 6.
Mm-hmm.
So they won 9
Oscars. They're not. I mean, I don't know what who knows what all goes on behind the scenes, but I think their expectations were even higher for La La Land. And certainly that's different studios, so they've got to keep emotions and expectations in check at the different studio levels. But anyway, it's all that preferential ballot, which is that one category only.
Yeah, it was. And look, it's not like Damien Chazelle was able to win the Best Director award. That's like an amazing accomplishment for director, like the youngest director ever to win. Off the back of Whiplash, his last film that did very well, winning 3 Oscars. So I'm excited for his next films. Mm-hmm. And I think hopefully it's not marred tonight for him is a good night where his film he directed, he won Best Director and his film won 6 Oscars, and it's not all about losing to Moonlight at the end.
Well, and the bad part of, they need to celebrate. They need to have an incredible, this is tremendous to win an Oscar, but the knives will be out for both Barry Jenkins and Damien Chazelle, whatever their next movie is. When you get this kind of publicity and notoriety, I don't even know why people do it, but they just really want to savage whatever's next.
Yeah.
And we learned an important lesson.
And sometimes they do stuff that is worthy of being savage.
Well, they can. We've seen people get a huge ego, a huge head. They can't figure out what kind of a project to do because of their own expectations. All kind of things happen. But I'm warning them right now. People will. We see it all the time. It's not just them. It'll be some of the actors. Mr. Oscar-winning actor now. Let's see what you can do now. We just see it all the time.
We learned an important lesson. The SAG Ensemble nomination. If you are snubbed there, like La La Land was, like The Revenant was, you really can't win Best Picture, and we always forget that. And now this really cemented it.
And what Daniel said in the pre-show, BAFTA doesn't mean a whole lot to Denzel Washington in general, because he's never been nominated there and he still has 2 Oscars. But Daniel was right in that in the past, either the movie didn't get released in England in time, or they just didn't like it. It just wasn't BAFTA's cup of tea. But here, we knew something was up because not only did Viola get in, but she won. So there was something to the BAFTA snub there that kind of was sticking with me. And again, I wanted Denzel to win, so I had to really take my emotion out of it and figure out that, Casey seems like he's got this thing more locked up than we think.
It'll be fun to
No,
go back and see which of the precursors got Moonlight right, because PGA was wrong, BAFTA was wrong, everything was wrong. So we
The
need
Globes were right.
The Globes were right. You're right.
La La Land also won the Globe, but Moonlight upset.
How did Moonlight not win SAG?
That's a good question.
Because I was predicting that. I mean, you got it right, Marcus. Kudos to you for that. But I mean, if it was on this track, we would have thought it would have won SAG Ensemble.
If you had told me Moonlight would win Best Picture at the Oscars, I would say, okay, well then I would have predicted Moonlight at SAG. You're right. I don't know. That's a good question.
It won the Critics' Choice Ensemble, and so
well, remember,
sometimes
SAG-AFTRA is more open, has more members than just motion picture people. It's also TV people, and Hidden Figures was definitely more widely seen. So
more popular.
Yeah, I also feel like
that would
Hidden
have to be a
Figures was a
factor.
more fun ensemble, and sometimes you have the fun, like, you know, Little Miss Sunshine wins at the SAG. Like, I don't know, like, it just, I don't know, the feel-good ensemble sometimes wins a bit more there.
Right.
I just want to mention a couple of other things from the show. The most unlikely, funny presenters to me were John Cho and Leslie Mann. How great were they together?
Mm-hmm.
They were actually pretty. At first,
His expressions alone, not only just what he said, and then there was this. He almost got tickled with her, and he couldn't. Almost couldn't continue there for a moment. I just thought that was. It's so like in the other direction. I didn't think Kate McKinnon was funny, and I always love her. So
I liked her. She was great.
She was okay, but I mean, sometimes we get our expectations up too much about certain things like that too. So I had no expectations about Leslie and John, and they over-delivered. And so anyway, I just thought that was really great. I like the candy falling from the sky. I don't know why. And then the little Lion King moment with the kid from Lion. That was very funny.
I'm obsessed with Oscar box office numbers. The Hurt Locker is the lowest in recent times, the lowest grossing Best Picture winner. That was 2009. It only got 17 million, and now Moonlight is second lowest, 22. But you know, it's still in theaters, right? So maybe that number will go.
Oh,
higher.
people will go see it now if they haven't already.
Yeah, because by the time that the Oscars came around for Hurt Locker, it was already out on DVD.
It was released in the summer, I think, originally. So
yeah, I think actually it had been honored at the Independent Spirit Awards the previous year. It was just weird releasing on that part.
And the Spirits not only got Moonlight right, but they gave it the most awards they've ever given any movie. So
and
we just don't generally pay much attention to them.
Spirits have been a really reliable predictor in recent years. Like if you're an independent film nominated for Oscars, you are going to win Spirit Awards. And like Casey Affleck won yesterday. Isabelle Huppert won, but Emma Stone wasn't nominated. Mahershala won the ensemble. He wasn't up for individual.
The Altman Award because
he would have won supporting if he'd been eligible.
Yes, he would have beat Ben.
Oh yeah, he definitely would have.
Yeah.
And Naomi Harris probably would have won supporting female, but I'm glad she was nominated because go Molly Shannon. The other, but last year they had Spotlight. Even the year before that, when I thought when it was Boyhood versus Birdman, and they gave the directing award to Linklater, they still win Birdman for Best Picture at the Spirits.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Anything else you want to touch on, Chris, from the show?
I don't think so. I was really, really pleased with their plan, their production itself. And I'm a nerd on things like graphics and music. They chose some of the greatest film songs and scores from history. I mean, as those underlying, presenters walking out, going to breaks. I was so impressed with that. The memoriam was tremendous this year. Not only the look of it, as well as the music, and way more, a larger number of people in there. They were very inclusive of lots of people that I wasn't sure in a past year would have made the cut just because they get stuck on being at 40 or whatever the number is. So that was very, very impressive as well, I thought.
Yeah, no,
and to mention having Jennifer Aniston mention Bill Paxton, there's no way they could have. I mean, they already had that thing sealed and ready to go. There's no way they could have added him to the actual. He'll be in next year's montage, but to actually mention his name, I thought was very smart, so that people like us, later in the evening, go, "What happened? Why wasn't he in there?"
It would have been like this big, the big 800-pound gorilla in the room that nobody talks about. If she hadn't mentioned him, did they ever do a movie together?
I'd have to look at. Nothing's coming to mind, but she really got emotional just talking about him. So,
yeah, she did.
I will say, going back to SAG, 3 people died. Very important people, like Friday, Saturday of SAG weekend, and I saw so many vicious comments online. Why is it? I think it was John Hurt, maybe Emmanuel Riva in the. Why weren't they included in that? Well, they'll be in next year's. There's no way on Friday of the weekend they can make those kinds of changes. Now, it would have been nice if somebody said, we're so sorry to lose XX and X, and we'll have them in next year's montage, like Jennifer Aniston basically said, but I don't think people understand the productions that have to go on behind the scenes, the shooting, the editing, all that. So,
yes, no, definitely. So, any other award categories you want to touch on, Chris?
I was pleased that I get upset when people have a tremendous year and there's easy places to honor them, like the Birdman year. You don't need to overdo it and give Inarritu 3 when Richard Linklater is sitting there with nothing. So I love the fact that Kenneth Lonergan, Barry Jenkins, and Damien Chazelle all walk away with awards.
I love that.
I mean, and how awful would it have been, let's say, if even if you love Moonlight, Barry had won both writing and directing, and Damien went away with nothing. And his whole, basically, many people on his team got awards. So I like it when they spread the wealth. I love the fact that Arrival got an award. We didn't think it would. Every place we looked, it was just like, in another year, I think it would win that, but not this year. So I love the fact that it won.
Yeah.
I'm still not on the OJ train. That was one of my favorite projects I saw all year, but I just don't think a TV series should be competing at the Oscars.
No.
I'm still surprised it actually won. I really thought that attitude, that same sort of attitude, was going to backfire on it at this point. So I'm very happy, but I was still very surprised.
I didn't have it until this past week, and again, it was just like so many awards were piling up over the last few weeks. I couldn't not pay attention to that anymore. I had to go, okay. It even beat 13th, which I thought was going to be the front runner forever at the Spirit Awards, where 13th, I mean, that should have beaten OJ at least there. But anyway, and The Jungle Book, that was one of my favorite movies of the year. A really popular blockbuster kind of a movie like that doesn't always win an Oscar. So I just am thrilled that they gave it visual effects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was
Especially
really
after last year. You have no idea what to make of that.
Right.
So anyway, it was quite the year. A lot of upsets. Like I imagine the average predictions for this year will be a lot lower than it's been in previous years, because from a whole number of angles, and Oscars we will never forget because of that was thrown into chaos over Best Picture. This is meant to be a 1 hour chat. We've chatted for about getting on 2 hours, I think, now. So it's largely because of that last minute panic and history being made at the end. We had to sort of break that down and see what happened. More will be unfolding, I'm sure, over the next week in that sort of story and what happened. So keep coming back to goldderby.com for all the latest updates, chat in the forums, post stuff. Our Emmy prediction center's now open, Chris, because as an Oscar season comes to a close, television awards and the Emmy Derby is just heating up. So you can make your predictions for the Emmys right now. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, 16 categories, and there's a lot of open slots with Game of Thrones gone, Downton Abbey gone, Amy Schumer's gone, Key and Peele's gone. I mean, just it's gonna be a fun year.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. Thanks, Charles and Chris and Marcus and Daniel and Rob and other Robert and Tom O'Brien and Tom O'Neill. Like everyone who's been part of this, Tony and Riley and everyone. It's been a really fun, exciting day. So, yeah, we'll see everyone on the Derby very soon.